John G. Pennington, George Kell Motor Company, Newport, Arkansas. Welcome, my friend. What in the world is going on today?
Well, it's definitely sunshiny out here.
Yes, beautiful day. Beautiful day.
Is this glare going to be too much for your
No,
camera?
I think I like that. I
Okay.
think it's coming right off your hair.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. I see hair there.
Yeah, a little bit. Hey, man,
that's
things
okay.
are happening out here. It's been crazy. Sun finally popped out. Farmers are busy. Everybody's working hard, getting crops in and all. Been real busy around here. Been unbelievably busy.
Yes, sir.
Especially in the shop. People are getting ready to go on vacation. School's getting ready to get out. People need their cars serviced and whatnot. We've got the greatest crew in the country.
It's a good group.
Boy, they really are good. Yeah, and they help us sell cars. That price is one thing, but service after the sale, nobody beats us. Nobody beats us. It's Russell and Scott and Ronnie Cornwell and all those guys, all our techs. They just do a great job. Well, a good friend of mine called the other day, and he's from Jonesboro, and he called and he said, "Hey, I like my new truck, but," he said, "I don't buy from you because I like you. I like Russell and those guys back in the back." He said, "I just pulled
Tells
through
it all.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Walzonia's who it is.
Oh,
from
yeah.
You know Tom.
Yeah.
And his brother Joe from Tremor. But
Sure.
anyway, he just called to rib me and said, "I don't buy because I like you. I buy because it's service."
That's right.
And that's
a lot of
part
guys do that.
They do that.
A lot
Yeah,
of guys do
absolutely
that.
right. So, we want to invite all of our friends that watch to come out and take advantage of the greatest service department in the country, and just wait until this new building's finished, where we've got all these new service bays where you can come in. You'll never have to walk outside. I know you're going to miss the potholes and the mud holes we got here. We've all fell in love with those, and we're going to miss them.
Those are nice, aren't
yeah,
they?
boy, I love those.
Yes, sir.
You get a car nice and clean. You pull it from the detail shop. Boom.
Well, it's hard for it to stay clean on a lot.
It
Very
is.
hard. Very
It's
hard.
But it's going to be nice. Customers are going to enjoy it. It'll be probably around Christmas or so. But we want to invite everybody to come out and take a look. We got some great rebates on new.
Yeah.
I'm going to show a few cars here in a minute. These are, we call them DRAC units. They're courtesy cars.
Right.
Customers come in, need to leave their car for a while. We put them in a vehicle so that they don't have to sit here and deal with people like me, so they can take off and drive one of the vehicles, and we keep them in DRAC 90 days, minimum of 90 days, or till they get 3,000 miles,
Okay.
at least 3,000.
Okay.
Then you get extra savings, and you're still considered new. It's never been titled. It's a new car. It's just got a few miles, and we take care of the miles on the warranty for you. So
Right.
It's just a good way to buy a car and save a lot of money. We're going to talk about some of those here in a minute, but rebates are good. Interest rates are still low, David, as you know. If anybody's got CDs out there, you might as well come buy a car with it, because you're not going to make anything on your money. So come out to see us. Well, we got a great staff. Things are rocking in Newport, Arkansas. There's more going on right now in Newport than I've
Tons
seen.
of stuff.
Can you believe it?
Yes, it's just it's
Downtown
it's a busy time.
revitalization and new buildings being built, and things are being added on at the plants, and we got a Hibbett Sports coming in. The little strip mall over here is going to be full now, and things. I haven't seen this much going on since, I guess, the 70s.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's a
just-
busy time.
It's good, and Newport's the center of the universe, man.
It is that. It is that.
And George Kell is the center of the car business. So we want you to all come out here to George Kell, take advantage of great expertise in the sales department. Again, the service department is beyond compare. Nobody does it better than they do. Wheels, tires, accessories, spray-in bed liners, and we also have a new sign company called George Kell Sign Company. Yeah. If you need your vehicle wrapped, if you need signage put on your car, we invested in a state-of-the-art computer that can do any and everything. So if you need that kind of thing done, come on out. Go by and see Jacob Cooper down at the old Lakeside building. He'll be on site with us when we got our new building. But call us up here. We'll direct you to him. He can do custom graphics. He does signs. He does car wraps. He can do anything you need to do. So keep that in mind. Just another service that we offer here at George Kell Motors.
We're at George Kell Motors, Highway 367 North, or 167 or 67. It's been a lot down through the years. But we're right here. Everybody knows where we are.
If you can't find us, call us. We'll give you directions.
We've got to show some automobiles. John's going to talk about some of these units that got great discounts on, coming right up.
Hey, I want to show you a little car right here. This is a Chevy Trax, T-R-A-X. New Chevrolet product. They just came out with it not long ago. It's a neat little car. It's not a great big family car, but if you need a car for running around, it gets about 35 miles a gallon. It's got a rear view camera in it. It's got the digital radio. It's got automatic with air and all those kind of things. If you're looking for a little car that get great gas mileage, come down here and see us, and let's look at this. You can lease this car. If you'd like to do a lease, you can lease this car for about $245 a month. Or if you want to buy it, you can buy it, and you can take this brand new car and you can extend your payments out to 75 months or whatever, and get them down there low where you can stand it, where you can have fun in it. Neat little car. You can carry about 5 people in it and some luggage. Great gas mileage car. Be a great car for running around Newport if you got a pharmacy or you got some kind of business that you need to carry some stuff, but you don't need a lot of great big car. This would be a perfect little car for you. Come look at this Chevy Trax. We'll put you in it today at George Kell Motors. This is one of our courtesy vehicles. It's a 2015 GMC Acadia. We put these courtesy cars into our fleet so that when you come get your car serviced, you don't have to sit here. You can take one of our cars, go right around and run your errands, do whatever you need to do. This car right here lists for almost $38,000. It's still considered new. It has a couple thousand miles on it, but you can save substantial money. You can buy this car for less than $31,000. It's like $30,700. Still considered new, still got all the warranty. This 15 Acadia right here has heated cloth seats. It has power lift gates, got the rear view camera. Come out and take a look at this car. It's a special buy. We've got several of them that we're trying to move along. We're going to put more. We've replaced this vehicle with another loaner, just like it. So when you come out here to get your service work done, we can put you in it, you can drive it. Come out and take a look at this exceptional buy. You can buy this 2015 Acadia, heated cloth seats, power lift gate, rear view camera for less than $31,000, and it's still got full warranty. Come see us. We'll put you in it today. If you're looking for a top-of-the-line vehicle, this Chevy Tahoe right here is what you're looking for. It's 4-wheel drive, got power folding third-row seats and second seats, 22-inch wheels. This vehicle with these wheels would list for about $60,000. It's one of our loaner units. It's got a few thousand miles on it, 5,000 I think, but we'll still cover all the warranty for you. You can buy this car right here for like $51,600. So you're saving $9,000 on a vehicle that's loaded up and ready to go. Beautiful red, beautiful 22-inch wheels. And by the way, if you don't want the 22-inch wheels, we can put the factory wheels back on it, and you can save another $2,000. But today, everybody wants bigger, shinier wheels. So that's got it. And if you don't want them, again, you can get this down another couple $1,000. Come take a test drive in this. It's got Cocoa Dune interior, power folding seats, 4-wheel drive. It's ready to roll. You'll look great in this going to a Red Wolves game or maybe a Razorback game. Come out to George Kell Motors, drive this car, save almost $10,000 on it today. Come see us. Come see any of our salespeople. Come by and say hi, have a cup of coffee, and get ready to get the best deal you ever got on a car and by far the best service. Right here at George Kell Motors in Newport.
Jackson's Funeral Home and the Jackson family have been serving our friends and neighbors in Jackson County during some of the most difficult times of their lives for nearly 60 years. As the third generation of this family to own and operate Jackson's Funeral Homes, Jan, Rhett, and Jerry consider it the highest honor to be chosen to care for you and your family during times of need. We believe the highest standard of care is achieved when people are given the tools needed to make the most informed decision for the benefit of their family. For us, there's no greater honor than to care for our friends and our neighbors in their time of need. The Jackson's Funeral Homes, the 1900 block of Malcolm Avenue in Newport, phone number 870-523-5822.
Hi everybody, I'm Bud Black and welcome to another edition of Remember When here on Cable 15 TV. And you folks who watch your program throughout Jackson County and Independence County know all the great guests we have had down the last couple of years. And I've been trying for a couple of years to get an old boy I used to run around with many years ago. And everybody knows this face. And welcome retired Governor Mike Beebe from Newport, Arkansas, and now resides, has grown up and made his living in Searcy, Arkansas, and is gracious enough to invite us into his home and his beautiful library and facility here in Searcy. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Boudreaux.
Mr. Governor.
Good
How
to
are
see
you,
I'm
sir?
good. I'm good.
You know, you're looking good for an elderly man.
Well, it beats the alternative.
Yes, it does. And I know how old I am. I'm eligible for Social Security all of a sudden, and Mike's a couple of years older than I am. So, but still, very young and agile, not fragile fella. You know, with a lot going on, even as a retired governor, you know.
Yeah, well, the first obligations I've had centered around moving back into this house and the honeydews that I've had.
Oh, yes, yes.
Unloading boxes, hauling boxes, carrying stuff. You know, we've been home since, I guess the second week in January, and we've still got boxes. So it's a long process, unpacking, repacking, giving stuff to Goodwill. Ginger had a garage sale of all things. I tried to avoid that, but I couldn't avoid the lifting and the hauling. And so that was one thing that's been going on. Then I've taken a little gig of council gig with the Roberts Group down in Little Rock that is kind of part-time, but it's a lot of fun. He has a lot of good clients, a lot of economic development activity going on, and that's kind of the area that I've been helping in, trying to create jobs or create opportunities for new folks to come to Arkansas and create jobs and create job opportunities and set up employment here.
Under your watch, under your 8 years, we had some tremendous growth in Arkansas. Something I know you're very, very proud of. And I know helping people is your number one concern, always has been, always will be. But helping by economic growth it's the best way to bring people out of poverty. Give them opportunities.
No question about it. If you can afford your people good skills through a quality education, and then provide them good jobs through economic development, then all those other issues are more readily solvable, whether it's health care, social justice, criminal justice. All the other issues that we face as a people and as a society are more readily handled if you've got an educated workforce that really has a job.
I think, you know, and we have heard so much, and you and me and anybody that watches television, of all of the trouble from Ferguson, Missouri to Baltimore, and somebody finally said, you know, maybe the root cause of all this is economics.
Well, yeah, when people are unemployed, when they're frustrated, when they don't have a horizon to look forward to, something better in life, then they revert and resort to unsavory activity sometimes, or idleness. And both of those things.
Boredom is terrible.
And those can lead to all sorts of social consequences that are not healthy.
Well, we have been fortunate in the state of Arkansas. You know, we went through our turmoil back in the 50s, you know, and the state, I really believe, has progressed so far, much further than most people around the country realize.
Yeah, you know, one of the phenomena that a lot of people don't understand is that we still don't have as good an image as what the reality is in Arkansas. And, you know, that's a two-edged sword, because the lack of a positive image across the country in some people's eyes makes it difficult for us to attract some. But the other side of that coin is, once they get here, we're so much better than they thought we were, that they don't want to leave. I hear over and over anecdotal stories of folks that said, well, my wife didn't want to come to Arkansas with my new job, but now she won't leave, and I'm going to have to change jobs to keep from leaving if the company wants to transfer me back. And that's particularly true in some of the national organizations that do business in Arkansas. Not necessarily around Walmart, but a lot of it's around Walmart.
Certainly.
But,
and nothing wrong with that. I mean, I hear, you know, Walmart has grown so much and so big, and sometimes there's a lot of Walmart bashing.
Do you ever think of what Newport would be if Sam hadn't left?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a good question, because that could go either way.
For your viewers, I mean, the story goes that in the 50s, Sam Walton ran a Ben Franklin store in Newport.
It's a true story, yes.
And that when the lease came up, his landlord didn't renew the lease, and so he packed up his car and his family and left Newport and went to Bentonville. And
without that move, he wouldn't have a Walmart.
Well, you might have had a Walmart, and Walmart headquarters might have been in Newport, Arkansas. You know,
as I say, could go either way. Beebe, you're throwing me curves here. You know, it just.
A lot of things in history turn on one little decision.
You know, and also there's a lot of people in Newport have this. You talk about something being perpetuated, saying, "Oh, you know, the big distribution plant at Searcy, you know, Newport turned that down. Newport didn't want that."
Is that right? I didn't know that.
No, Mr. Sam himself, I interviewed him down at Forest City one day, and I asked him about that. Yeah. And he said, I knew your father, you know, and blah, 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 and all that, and we visited. He said, no. And the reason I say that, he knew who I was. He knew the name at the time. And he said that never was feasible because at the time there was no interstate in Newport.
Yeah.
We had a straight shot on 64 to Memphis.
Yeah.
You know, we had easy access to Little Rock.
Right.
He said Searcy was the better choice.
Yeah.
He said, and the rumor that Newport told us they didn't want it is just simply
Not true.
Not true.
Well, I'm glad you put that to rest.
But yeah, still people in Newport, Arkansas tell me, you know, we could have had that big Walmart distribution thing. I said, yeah, okay, right, you know, because they believe what they believe, some
Sure.
of them, and that's just the way it is. But that's a good point. Getting to something else, so now we got economic development, and talking about Newport, Arkansas, in the 50s. I usually start interviews with everybody by asking them one question, and I'm going to ask you, although we didn't start that way. Where and when were you born?
I was born on December 28, 1946, in my great-grandmother's tar paper shack in the suburb of Amigan.
Out in the north.
Yeah, about a mile and a half. If you're in Amigan, I didn't know where it was. Obviously, I was born.
You're right on the river.
I had
Cache River.
I had a great aunt that delivered me. Back in the day, it wasn't unusual to have 30, 40 years difference between the youngest child and the oldest child in a generation. And my great aunt, who was my grandmother's sister, was roughly the same age as my mother. She was the youngest in that generation, and of course my mother was the youngest in her family too. But she tells me all this stuff because she helped deliver me. They said the doctor couldn't get there, and so there was a tar paper shack that my great-grandmother lived in about a mile and a quarter north of Amigan. And there's only one intersection or one road that goes north out of Amigan, and they said up that road was where that shack was. Subsequent to me being elected governor, I guess her son, which would be my second cousin or whatever that relationship would be, actually went out there and marked the location, and it's out in the middle of a bean field, and marked the location where that old house had stood. And I've seen pictures of it, and I have a vague recollection being 4 or 5 years old and going back there for a visit. And it was all wooded. But apparently back in those days there was an old railroad that ran up through there, railroad spur, that they carried timber out because there was a lot of timber area. And consequently, there were a lot of trees and it wasn't an open field, in other words.
Duck hunting area, actually flooded timber in and around the river there, you know.
Yeah.
Oh man, you know.
But that's where I was born, and then we moved around a lot.
Yeah, I started to say that. I know you went to Michigan.
Well, I think my mother was actually living in Detroit, but had come back to visit her.
her chronologically set that up for us.
Well, a lot of it's pretty vague. I lived in Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, Festus, Missouri, 3 places in Florida, Houston, Texas, Alamogordo, New Mexico. I went to 5 different schools in 4 different states.
Well, you don't need to travel as an adult. You've been
just
there.
in the 5th grade, just in 1 year.
1 year?
4 states, 5 schools in the 5th grade. Newport and Tuckerman were the 2 places here, and went to Houston, St. Louis, and for a little while in Florida.
And then when did you finally come back?
My mother
Newport?
moved back to Newport in the summer between my 8th and 9th grade.
Yes.
We lived down there under the bridge in the Dorsey Apartments. She was a waitress. She spent her whole life as a waitress. Supported me on a waitress's tips. I was her only child. And she worked at Midway Sandwich Shop. She worked at Kelly's. She worked at, later on at Razorback out north on the highway. But from the
Those were the days, were they not?
From the 9th grade on, went through all through school in Newport. And that was the longest we'd ever lived anywhere. 4 years, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
I think you were probably about the 10th grade when I first met you. I would have been like the 7th grade or so, and everybody said Mike Beebe. He was just, and you were a gregarious individual.
Well, I ran around with a bunch of people that were pretty gregarious.
And
Leslie Steen and Bill Rash and Jerry Sullivan and Tommy Ashley and Billy
Brass.
Hale, Troy Johnston. I mean, on and on and on.
Yeah. Good bunch.
Yeah.
Good bunch.
Sometimes we were the kind of kids our mother didn't want us to run around with.
But you know, we may have been a little mischievous.
Yeah, you know, the worst thing that, you know, back in those days, the worst thing that could happen to you is you get in a fist fight or you get caught drinking a beer. We didn't have drugs, we didn't have knives, we didn't have guns. Right. The temptations that exist for young people in today's world are so much more difficult.
Yeah, the big thing was for me to tell Pete and Dorothy Holden, you know, that Browse was spending the night with me.
Yeah,
and then Buddy and Lois Black got told that Bud was spending the night with Browse.
Right.
And Bill and Faye Garrison knew that Billy Garrison was running around. We always thought we had them fooled.
Oh yeah, but you didn't.
No, they knew what we were doing. You know? And what would we do? We would stay up all night long and maybe walk around Rimmel Park over by the school, and then we'd go down to the bakery, Bob Jennings Bakery.
Oh yeah.
And Bob Jennings is making donuts at 3 o'clock in the morning, hot, fresh, and you're going to give you free donuts.
Well, I don't remember them being free, but I
they
do.
Give you one. Free.
I do remember, and I didn't think it was 3 o'clock. I mean, I can kind of remember midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning.
What?
Going by there and well, before you went in,
okay.
I don't think I stayed up all night.
Well, you might not have had the stamina, some of us. Those were fun times. They were great times.
Newport was a great town to grow up in. There was, you know, I told you that my mother was a waitress.
Yes.
She wasn't a morning person, but because you have to rely on tips, the best tips are noon and night, not breakfast. Mm-hmm. So she'd go to work about 11 o'clock, but she wouldn't get home till about 11 o'clock at night, 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So I had an inordinate amount of freedom. Because she wasn't there. Now, she always wanted me to come to whatever restaurant she was working in to eat supper. But, you know...
And sometimes you ended up at somebody's house. You know,
sometimes I'd go by the restaurant. But more often than not, 14, 15, 16-year-old boy doesn't want to do that all the time. And there were 7 or 8 families that always had an extra plate. You know, friends of mine's folks that always had an extra place at the table. And they were pretty good about, are you minding your mother? Are you doing what she tells you? Are you getting your homework? Are you... so they were providing
shaped your character.
Absolutely, and I think what it illustrated is how protective and giving Newport was as a community at that time. They took folks under their wings and looked after them and looked after each other.
This moving about and 5 schools, 4 states in 1 year. I mean, this is so tough on a kid. How were your grades when you got to Newport and finally got settled in? How were your grades? Were you a good student? Did it take a while? Bill Keaty told me he was a sophomore in college before he ever got serious about grades.
You know, I did what I had to do. I mean, I didn't have to work hard to make decent grades, but I wasn't tearing the top out of the grades either. Mm-hmm. When you move around that much, you have to be good at one of 3 things, because you're always the new kid in the class, you know. So either you better be tough, and I wasn't, or you better be fast, and I wasn't, or you better learn how to talk. So I learned how to talk.
Join the crowd. If I couldn't talk, I'd be out of business.
There you go.
You know, and now when did this, and I know we need to take a break here in a second, and we'll do that, but when did this idea of, I want to go to college, I want to do something, I was on the radio when I was in the 7th grade. So I knew all along I'm gonna be a radio guy or a TV guy, you know, and I had an ability to broadcast ball games without ever any training or anything, and it was a lot of fun. And people have always said, you know, Bud, you were pretty good at that. And enjoy. When did you get that epiphany? When did you find out what you felt like you wanted to do or do?
Well, it's kind of ironic, because what I wanted to do, I didn't end up doing. I thought I wanted to go in the FBI.
I thought I wanted to be a lawyer.
And, well, I didn't have a clue I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to go in the FBI, and so I never will forget, we set up an interview, and Estes Coleman, FBI agent stationed in Jonesboro, came to Newport to City Hall for, I think it was on a Saturday morning, and I went in for my interview, about to graduate from high school, 17 years old. He said, well, son, I thought we were going to interview you for a clerical job. Said, you got to have a law degree to be an agent. or an accounting degree back then. And I said, "Oh, really?" I thought I was going to join up and be an agent.
Sign up. Join in the Army.
Pretty naive. And so I went to college specifically to then go on to law school to go in the FBI. That's the only reason, that's the only motivation I know of for why I went to college, and subsequently why after I graduated from college I went to law school. Now, between my first and second year in law school, I clerked for a firm here in Searcy, summer job, and fell in love with it. The next summer, I worked for the Treasury Department in D.C., and all of those experiences changed my mind, so that when I did have the opportunity to go in the FBI, I'd already changed and decided to go and practice law.
You're practicing law. Most folks know you had a big case, and you know it helped you become financially secure. But then, first idea, politics.
Well, I don't have that immediate epiphany moment that you suggest, and that might have been described by my interview with Estes Coleman. But it was kind of a gradual thing. My senior partner at the time, the guy who hired me, Ed Lytle, had been a state senator. Mm-hmm. And so, and had been for 8 years and decided that was enough and didn't run anymore and said somebody else's turn. Well, the fact that that firm had that history and that small town political environment, Searcy had not had a state senator since then. Walmsley had become the state senator, and Batesville and Searcy were in the same district, and so a lot of people from Searcy were running, and Bill Walmsley kept beating them, but Searcy kept getting bigger and bigger than Batesville. And so it was going to be more and more difficult. So after redistricting in 1980, 81, after the 80 census, Walmsley was successful in cutting Searcy away from Batesville and Newport and put Searcy in with Stuttgart. There was an incumbent senator, Mr. Bill Hargrove, but we had a lot more people than he did, and ultimately he just dropped out of the race and decided not to run. So that's how all that occurred.
Okay, and you get elected, and you stay there, what, 30?
20 years.
20 years. In that period, you became recognized probably as I hate to use the word best, you know, but the best legislator maybe ever in the history of the state of Arkansas.
Oh, I don't know.
No, seriously. And how did you learn it? Was it OJT?
A whole lot of it was.
Okay.
You know, the law degree helps because you're dealing with laws, you're dealing with interpretation of laws, you're dealing with how you write a law or what law needs to be changed. So that background helped. You mentioned financially secure, so it enabled me to have a law firm, but also spend a significant amount of time in the actual Senate and doing Senate work, doing constituent work out of my law practice. So all of that by osmosis as well as OJT kind of coalesced. And then I was fortunate that when I went in, it was a sea change. There are 35 senators, and it was one of those things that happened back then about every 20 years because there were no term limits. So that it was a combination of redistricting, retirements, deaths, defeats, and we had 11 out of 35 that were freshmen. Mm-hmm. And that was highly unusual. Usually freshmen were be seen and not heard in the Senate. But when you've got 11 out of 35, the old bulls can't afford to ignore you.
Yeah,
you've got a little pull. Yeah, you got a third of your whole body. And so they courted us a little more than they would have normally courted a freshman class of 2 or 3 senators, and afforded me and others opportunities that we might not have had for several years. And so I got on the Legislative Council and joint budget and all that stuff very early, and then absorbed all that. So, after several years, it was kind of old hat.
We are visiting with Governor Mike Beebe, and we will take just a quick break, and we'll come right back. Got a lot to talk about.
Jackson's Funeral Home and the Jackson family have been serving our friends and neighbors in Jackson County during some of the most difficult times of their lives for nearly 60 years. As the third generation of this family to own and operate Jackson's Funeral Homes, Jan, Rhett, and Jerry consider it the highest honor to be chosen to care for you and your family during times of need. We believe the highest standard of care is achieved when people are given the tools needed to make the most informed decision for the benefit of their family. For us, there's no greater honor than to care for our friends and our neighbors in their time of need. The Jackson's Funeral Homes, the 1900 block of Malcolm Avenue in Newport, phone number 870-523-5822.
Bud Black on Remember When with Governor Mike Beebe, recently retired. Is that the word you use? Retired? I mean,
It's good enough.
good enough.
It's pretty good.
It's
pretty good. You know, you treat a lot of days as Saturdays now.
Well, I know you've been busy, and I know you have some things going on. As a matter of fact, we were just talking, and when we taped in mid-May on this program, I had just watched 42, as everybody who knows President Clinton affectionately calls him, on David Letterman last night. And you said you're going to visit with him tonight at a function, and I know you have a pretty close relationship with Bill and Hillary, and always have and always will. And I got a kick last night. Letterman said, well, what are your chances of moving back into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? And on national TV, he said, well, first, Hillary's got to get the nomination. Second, she's got elected. And third, she's got to invite me to the White House. So I said, that is pretty cool for a guy who's been through a lot, to be able to be self-deprecating.
He's got a great sense of humor.
Yeah, he does. But anyway, people would like me to ask you about the Clintons and Hillary and her opportunities.
Well, I think she's got a really good opportunity. First of all, he went back in. He was governor for back when we had 2-year terms. He was governor for 2 years and got beat then by Frank White.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later came back in the '82 election. So when he came back is when I came in. So we kind of grew up together in this stuff. And he was governor for 10 years while I was in the Senate. We obviously had agreements and disagreements. Worked well together, got along very well together, and I got to know her obviously through him. She's gone on obviously in the U.S. Senate and as Secretary of State, but he and I have continued to communicate. Really communicated a lot in the last year when the elections were going on, and so and he comes to Arkansas a lot.
Yeah. He is really, really proud, and rightfully so, and talked a little bit about it last night, of the Clinton Initiative and the Clinton Foundation. And for those folks that don't know, the work worldwide that the initiative has set up to where it's just privately funded,
right?
No taxpayer money,
right?
And people don't understand that. Now, politicians on the other side of the fence may say, "Oh, where's all this money going around?" It's private money, Well,
the thing about Bill Clinton is he never had any money and never cared about it.
Right.
Money was never a big issue for Bill Clinton, and now that he's out of public life, he's making a lot of money.
You bet.
He's getting enormous speaking fees, particularly overseas. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and it's kind of ironic that he's waited till he's in his mid-60s, or late, now he's in his late 60s, and he's finally making a lot of money, and he never made a lot of money before and never cared much about it before.
Right. And so, what they are doing is fine. I enjoy, he is such a great politician. He's still a charismatic character.
Right.
He gets up and talks about, it's the economy, stupid. and it just, and swings an election.
Oh, yeah.
Swings a re-election for Obama. There's no doubt. His speech, did it.
He says it's arithmetic.
Yeah,
it's not even math. It's arithmetic.
Can you not figure out about this? And when he says it, it just rings so true, and everybody, hears the bells ringing, and it's just, he's absolutely amazing. And I still think if he has his health, a year and a half from now, when we have election time, I think he might be a determinant in that race.
He's very effective.
Our national politics anymore is so close with the Electoral College and the way it's set up, You gotta win some of the swing states, and that's, nobody sweeps the bunch anymore, and I don't think it's ever going to be like that again.
No, it's the nation nationally is pretty divided.
I know one thing. I know Hillary has to have some votes in the South. I think she really could ensure an election by getting some votes in the South. And I think if she gets the nomination, I really believe that, somebody from the South needs to be on that ticket.
I know where you're going, and I'm happy where I
am. Well, you just hang in there where you are, sir. But I want to go back to the Arkansas legislature, and I don't want you to tell me who the favorites were, because that's impossible and you defend somebody. But some of your most memorable characters working with
Knox Nelson. Knox Nelson was the old bull. There were several old bulls, but he was the old bull that kind of took me under his wing and taught me stuff. Now, Knox had a reputation for doing some things that were pretty self-serving. I never personally witnessed it, but I wouldn't argue with or deny some of the stuff that has been said. But as far as the way he treated me, he taught me. He taught me the budget process. He let me in on some of the revenue stabilization meetings when freshmen were never supposed to be in, stuff like that. So at the outset, Knox was really good to me. Secondly, the guy that's closest to me, I guess, in the world, more like a brother than anybody else, he and I served 16 years there together. He was there 16 of the 20 I was there, and that's Morrill Harriman, who ended up being my chief of staff in the governor's office. We had that Kennedy brother relationship, where I totally trusted him and he totally trusted me, and whatever I was thinking, he was probably thinking it at the same time, and vice versa. So those two, but then we had a cadre of close friends. Steve Bell from Batesville, close friend. Right. Bill Gwatney, who's no longer with us, close friend.
Tragic, yeah.
Tom Kennedy from over at Russellville. John Fitch. There were just several in that group that really ended up being very, very close. David Malone from up in Northwest Arkansas. And back in those days, when we didn't have term limits, you could establish relationships and friendships. And you could fight like the devil on an issue and be the opposite side of an issue. But because you had established those relationships and some degree of trust, you could fight and then go out and eat together. There wasn't the acrimony. There wasn't so that you could sometimes sit down and reason with one another and try to work out problems.
You're in touch with politics in D.C., to say the least.
Those people are crazy, bud.
Thank you.
Those people up there have.
Why can they not do what we can do in state Arkansas?
They should have. They put me on what's called this bipartisan council. And that's another one of my jobs that's part-time. But it's 3 former Democratic governors and 3 former Republican governors.
Now, you just were in D.C. the other day.
No, I'm going next.
Okay.
I'm going next week.
Yeah, okay.
And those 6 governors, 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats, are supposed to teach Congress how to work together, because the governors do.
Yeah, right. Why not?
Regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat, the governors have traditionally been able to, because they got to go solve problems. Governors have to go make things happen. They can't just make a speech and blame it on somebody else. You've got to have, in the executive branch, you've got to have the ability to go get things done. Well, I don't know if Congress will listen to that. Theoretically, that was part of why the bipartisan council was set up, was to provide help, guidance, support, information, influence to the Congress. We'll see. The governors are working well together.
It is so frustrating. Well, you're a citizen of this country. It's so frustrating to watch that year after year after year.
But let me tell you a great story. Erskine Bowles, who was Bill Clinton's chief of staff for a while, now the president of the University of North Carolina, told the governors a great story at a meeting we had several years ago up in Boston. And when he was Clinton's chief of staff, Clinton sent him over to talk to the leadership in Congress about balancing the budget. And Trent Lott, the Republican senator from Mississippi, was the leader of the Republican Senate. And Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House. So you had 2 Republicans and a Republican Congress and a Democratic president. And they spent several weeks kind of jockeying, not getting much done, according to Erskine Bowles, to see if somebody was going to run to the press or somebody was going to try to make a political deal out of it. When they finally figured out that people were serious, that all three of them were serious, they settled down and got busy. The result of that was the last 3 years of Bill Clinton's presidency, with a cooperation of a Republican Congress and a Democratic president, we had surpluses in the range of $1/3 of $1 trillion, $330 billion a year surpluses for the first time in anybody's memory. And we were on the road when Bill Clinton left office. And it's not just Bill Clinton. You give Bill Clinton credit, but give the Republicans credit too in the Congress.
Certainly.
They had worked together in a way.
From there and there to here.
And they had worked together in a way that we were on our way to not only not having any more annual deficits, but they were on the way to eradicating the national debt had things continued just for a few more years. Now, you know, we had the Bush tax cuts and we had 9/11. So some things happened that derailed that whole process. But it can be done. It can be done, and it was done as recently as the late 90s with the example that I just gave you. And why they won't do it now, I don't know. I'm frustrated with all of them. We've got some folks. Steve Womack's a neat man, Republican congressman from up in Northwest Arkansas. He's the kind of guy that could go get stuff done. John Bozeman's a nice man. The rest of them, I mean, you know, I don't know if the rest of them could ever sit down with one another to figure out how to go solve a problem. It seems that it's all my way or the highway. And Bruce Westerman, guy from down south Arkansas, I watched him flip-flop 4 or 5 times on issues in the State House of Representatives. Yeah. He was a majority leader that couldn't even keep the majority of his party together. They ran off and left him.
You sound like John Boehner.
Yeah. So, I mean, those people up there need... I used to say there are more good ones than bad ones, and probably there are, but good Lord. I've gotten so frustrated with Washington that I don't...
join the crowd, sir. You know, the days of Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill fighting like cats and dogs all day long, and then, as you say, going to dinner, throwing a couple back, getting it solved.
And that's the way it should happen. That's what the country was founded on. It's never... Nobody's ever going to get their way all the time. If you don't sit down and try to reason with one another, you're never going to get anything done. So,
and still, we can't get anything done on trade. We can't get anything done on immigration.
And now we got highway money running out.
Oh yeah, running out at the end of the month or end of next month. Yeah. Just and Congress sitting there
doing nothing.
They have to act to do that. And
but
the Arkansas Highway Department had just announced, you know, their tremendous amount of cuts they're having to make.
And then we hear from our own congressional folks, well, the leadership won't let us. Well, then why are we electing them? Let's just elect 4 leaders, pay them, and let them decide what's going to happen. Right. If the bulk of the body of the, I'm going to tell you, the legislature doesn't work that way. The Senate President Pro Tem or the House Speaker doesn't tell the rest of the folks how and when they can vote on anything. I mean, if you can't muster a majority of folks to say, if that's the way that system works up there, they ought to change it. Or why do we need them? I'd like to vote on this. I'd like to solve this problem. I'd like to get Arkansas Highway money back, but the leadership won't call it to a vote. Get new leaders. Change the rules. Let a majority rule. You know, you can put this on.
I thought you said you were happy.
I am happy here, and you know, frankly, I've
I
always.
love it. Go ahead.
I've always been kind of candid anyway. You
yes,
know,
you have.
Even when I was running for election or re-election.
You've been candid since you were 10 years old, sir.
And I'm not going to quit doing that. I mean,
I don't blame you. I like a man who is what he is.
Now, the other side, we can brag on folks too, because there's some good folks. We've got a young state senator here who in Searcy. Who's President Pro Tem of the Senate, named Jonathan Dismay, shocked me at how well he's done and how much leadership he's exerted and what a good senator he is. He's a Republican from right here in Searcy, and he's really, really done a good job. So I'm a Democrat. I'm always going to be a Democrat. It's the policies of the Democratic Party allowed me to get an education, allowed me to do what I've done. But I can get along with both sides of the aisle, and I'm not always right, and they're not always wrong, and you work together. And so when you got someone like Jonathan Dismay, you ought to brag on him. You ought to talk about him. Then when you got some of these clowns, you got a guy up in Heber Springs, a state representative, that had a car wreck when he was young, and is in a wheelchair and paralyzed. I can't prove it, but go ask him. I'm sure he draws Social Security disability, and I'm sure that he got some help with his medical bills all his life. And he voted against any health insurance for anybody else.
Right.
I call that hypocrisy. How can you take it and deny the same stuff to other people? I hope somebody in Heber Springs watches this program.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because
I'm back to them.
I'm not afraid of any of those folks.
I know you're not. I appreciate you sitting down and doing this. We have been acquainted.
Well, let's talk about nice stuff.
And friends for a long time, you know. And
Yes, we have.
We could talk about Bill Keaty, I guess.
We could. Let me say something about Batesville, because I know your viewers.
Yep.
In Batesville, you talk about a town that embraced a Newport boy. That's one of my favorite towns politically. They have embraced me. I've got more friends in Batesville than I ever could have imagined. They have been so good to me. We've done a lot of stuff together, they used to laugh, and I used to laugh about. Never would have believed that folks in Batesville would have embraced the Newport.
Yeah,
boy.
and
Apparently they like you too.
We're all Newport boys doing some business.
Apparently
in Batesville,
they like you
and
too.
We enjoy Batesville, and as we say, we have met down through the years many great folks. I never disliked Batesville except on Thanksgiving afternoon.
There you go. But that was a great rivalry.
Oh, wasn't that fun?
It was a great rivalry.
Oh, people that don't realize that, you know. And so,
I wouldn't want the viewers to know that I was one of those guys that went up there to paint their water tower.
I wouldn't tell them.
I don't tell them.
I will not tell them that you were one of those guys. As a matter of fact, I don't know who the instigator was for sure, but I'm not going to say, okay? But I don't know who the general was, but there were several soldiers. So.
It was a great tradition. They'd come down and they burned a bee, I think, in our field.
Yeah, they certainly did. Yeah, but I wrote a thesis in college about the atmosphere on Thanksgiving Day, and that some families, depending on where the game was at Batesville, Newport, they had Thanksgiving dinner before the game or after the game, you know. And every family had its own tradition.
Yeah.
And people went to that football game that never got out of the house. I mean, speaking of folks in wheelchairs, and I've used one here recently in the last couple of years off and on, people insisted, I want to get in my wheelchair and I'm going to the game.
Yeah.
And look, we didn't just put on our shirt and pants. I mean, it was the three-piece suits, the hats, the beautiful overcoats. The ladies, they weren't on their Sunday finest, they were on their Easter finest. My gosh, and I played in 3 of those football games.
Tradition. Yeah. And now that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and that's a shame. I mean, I love the playoff system. It's great and everything, but at the same time, man alive, that was one of the things that held communities, you know, together. Have you settled down? You feeling better now?
Oh, yeah, I felt good before. But you got me started talking about Congress.
Okay.
And
I know a lot. Well, I want you to talk about Congress.
And I've let folks know how I feel about what's going on up there.
And I wish they could change, and everybody wishes they could change, and I don't have a lot of confidence unless something major happens, and I don't know what that is. That's
when the
going
American
on.
people get fed up enough, the people are still the boss. The American people are still the boss. And at some point, they're going to get fed up with the inactivity and the inaction. And I don't know what it's going to take, but there are going to be folks get thrown out and folks that get elected with a specific purpose of getting stuff done.
Be back and talk about some things that happened on his watch, on the Honorable Mike Beebe's watch, 8 years as governor, and also a couple of schools that are near and dear to his heart, especially Arkansas State University. Of course, he reminds everybody he has degrees from both major universities, not to leave out UALR, you know, and all that stuff, from the university system and the Arkansas State system. We'll be right back. everybody in St. Arkansas loves the Razorbacks. Some of us have an affinity and a little special love for the Red Wolves at Arkansas State because we went to school there, you and I.
Sure.
You know, good friends of ours, and I know you have served as the board of directors and chairman of the board, and also a great fan. You're a great fan.
Yeah, I watched the program grow and grow, and it probably is growing faster and reaching heights in the last couple of years that we couldn't have even imagined. All the construction that's going on now, I've been in those fancy suites at Razorback Stadium. They're going to have them now at Jonesboro.
Right.
It's pretty amazing. Nothing like winning, and they've
winning solves a lot of ills.
It really does, and it generates other winning. And so we're kind of lucky with Hugh Freeze. He was offensive coordinator and had done a good job in 1 year as offensive coordinator when Roberts was let go, and so he was promoted. You really didn't know what you had.
Yeah, but that turned the corner for the program.
But he took it, won the conference championship, admittedly with a lot of folks that Roberts had recruited and brought there, and proved that you could win. Which then he got the Ole Miss head job after 1 year, which then occasioned the opening that Gus Malzahn, and he took it to a totally different level, including with tremendous recruiting talent in just 1 year. Another conference championship, another bowl game. And then it goes to, so he leaves to coach Auburn after 1 year. And then you get Brian Harsin, who's a Boise guy and played at Boise, but came as offensive coordinator from University of Texas, the Longhorns. And he lasts 1 year, and the Boise job comes open, so he leaves. But again, a conference championship, another bowl game. And then we get Blake Anderson, and tremendous mind, tremendous person, really good coach from North Carolina. He'd been at Southern Miss and then North Carolina. And finally, you got somebody that wants to stay a little longer, or whose alma mater didn't pay him $5 million to switch.
And the buyout's tough enough.
And the buyout, we've learned year after year after year. The buyout now, I was told somebody if Blake left after a year, we'd be able to hire Saban.
Yeah.
It's not quite that. It's not quite that big, but
he'd owe us a couple of dollars.
But the program has really grown. I think it's great for the state of Arkansas. It's fun to watch them, and I'm looking forward to another good season.
The next step, and it's happening in September. It's happening is that Arkansas State's had to go on the road and play the Alabamas and the Floridas, but now you've got a team, the Missouri Tigers, who are the two-time defending SEC Eastern Division champions, coming to Jonesboro.
That's right. They're coming the second game of the year. ASU starts with Southern Cal. Like Arkansas started with Southern Cal a few years ago.
Easy start at Los Angeles against the Trojans and home against Missouri. Hey,
But it ought to be a happening.
Couple of gimmies.
Missouri's going to bring tons of fans.
Oh man, yeah.
So I hope the people of Arkansas will support it. And
I hope they're going to buy the tickets, because of what they don't. I mean, the Missouri
go to Missouri, yeah. And so if you're thinking about going, you better get them quick.
Absolutely. I mean, I think game will be a sellout pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
And A-State fans have to get there and buy the tickets, because let me tell you what, there are folks from the Boot Hill all the way to St. Louis that maybe don't get a big chance to go to Columbia a lot.
Right. You're right, bud.
That will certainly go to Jonesboro. But I know you have a great love for that university, and as you say, politics not aside, but but you have degrees from both universities.
Yeah, the law degree from University of Arkansas, honorary doctorate from University of Arkansas, honorary doctorate from ASU. Both schools have been good to me, and a real doctorate, JD, from the law school.
Why don't you brag a little bit?
That allowed me. Well, it allowed
brag
me.
a little bit, Beebe.
It allowed me to keep my wife in the lifestyle to which she wanted to become accustomed.
Good.
The law degree did.
Yes, okay.
Not the governor's salary.
The governor doesn't make a whole lot of bread, y'all. I'm telling you. These people say, "Oh, you must be rich if you were the governor." You need to look what the salary is.
Both schools have allowed me to do what I do. Both schools formed. ASU was really the place that formed me. But without the law degree from the University of Arkansas, I couldn't have enjoyed the financial success. So I have a deep obligation in both places. My first love's the Red Wolves, though.
Yep. Okay. Searcy, Arkansas.
Great town.
Here you are back home.
Great town.
You know,
I've always
when did you
told.
move to Searcy? What year?
Right out of law school, 1972.
Okay.
I've always told folks, and I tell them, and you're going to tell them again, I really have 3 hometowns in Arkansas. Obviously, Newport, Jonesboro, and Searcy.
All right.
And in different stages of my life, in different ways, all 3 have helped form, for good or ill, whatever has happened to me. And so Searcy's one of those 3 places. Great people. It's where I raised my family. It's where I've lived since 1972. Even when we still had our home even when I'm in the governor's mansion. So this is home.
You and Bill Keating have had a special relationship, and folks in Newport, of course, love Bill Keating and always have and always will for his accomplishments and what he's done not only for the school but for the community as a whole. But you guys introduced and inducted each other in the High School Hall of Fame. You inducted him in the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame. And that night I happened to be there. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
And I've always appreciated Bill's special salute to me in my work with the Greyhounds that he made that night. A special relationship. And I know it developed when you first got to Newport.
Yep.
And has just continued to grow over the years.
Yeah, Bill Keating was Mr. Newport. I mean, all-state quarterback, golden boy, maybe the most popular figure of his time in high school. Then he and I go to ASU. He was a year ahead of me.
Right.
And we go to ASU.
He's old, man.
Yeah. And we go to ASU, and he and I are in the same fraternity. And so, I think.
And you pies get together every so
yeah,
often, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, every once in a while. And Johnny Allison and Bill Keating and I mean some Ron Rhodes and Danny Pierce.
I visited with Ron the other night.
And then it's continued. We continued to be close even after that. I followed him, obviously, as he started coaching, and he ended up where at Paragould, Sylvan Hills, and then back home to Newport. And then I guess for 2 decades, put Newport's football in a posture of championship caliber year after year after year. And so we continue to be very close, talk on the phone frequently, see him at all the ball games. Of course, he's working, as a color man.
Right.
But yeah, he's a special guy. And his wife, I knew her in school when they were dating in school, and she's a sweetheart.
Jennifer Ware from Little Rock Hall.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So yeah, it's a special relationship. He's a super guy. Joe Miles publishes Joe Miles is a wonderful writer.
Yes, he is.
But Joe Miles grew up in Newport, and now he's a banker. I guess he's lived in lots of places, but now he's a banker. Mountain Home.
Very good friend of mine.
But he publishes a blog about Newport.
Yes.
That it's a little behind me, so he's talking about a lot of folks that
but
that
it's
I only know
fascinating.
yeah, but is really well written. So
I thought I had a great memory until I read Miles.
I know he's
Golly, you know.
Yeah. But there's people like that like Keating and like Miles that Newport means so much to them, and they never forgot where they came from, and they because Newport's a special place now. I mean, I guess everybody says that about their hometown where they grew up, but Newport engenders a loyalty that's harder to duplicate.
Newport is finally beginning to grow a little bit. Just in the last year, 18 months, we have noticed that we got the new Walmart store. That helped. And then suddenly there's growth, a lot of movement. Even existing businesses building new facilities and just
all that came up when I was governor.
Yes, you did it. So it's
well, we provided some help.
Certainly.
Newport did it.
Right.
Newport did it, and those businesses did it. But sometimes that last little bit of help or assistance that can enable something like that to occur
And
makes all
now
difference.
and allow Medallion Foods to hire an additional 50 to 100 people and things that, you've got to. And people don't understand it, Big River Steel. They don't understand it. Well, you can't put that much money in a deal like that, or you can't, state of Arkansas can't do this. You have to do that. I mean, you're in a competition game.
Yeah, I wish nobody ever had to do that. But if you're competing with North Carolina or Alabama or Oregon or California and they're doing it, then it'd be like a football team that said we're not going to have a weight program because we don't want to subject the kids to having to lift weights. But you're competing against all the other schools that have a weight program. You're not going to be competitive very long.
For a Democrat, for a great conservative Democrat,
Fiscally conservative.
fiscally conservative is my point. Here's where I'm going. In your tenure, we always had money. We've had money when you were there.
Well, yeah, it's.
Isn't that a nice feeling? I mean,
Yeah.
hey, look, we can pay the bills.
Yeah, of course, Arkansas has a requirement for a balanced budget, but so do 49 other states.
Yeah.
Vermont's the only one that doesn't have that requirement, and yet all the others go broke. Or only 4 states didn't get in fiscal trouble during that bad recession, 08 and 09, 10. And Arkansas was one of the 4, and I always used to joke the other 3 don't have any people in them. It was North Dakota, Montana, and Alaska. Yeah. And so it's watching your money. As we said, I grew up pretty poor, and if my mother made a dime, she probably made sure 9 cents of it was available for me. But we didn't have many dimes, and so I'm conservative when it comes to spending money. I don't think you spend it if you don't have it, and then I think if you're going to err, you're going to err on the side of making sure that you can balance that budget. And then if you got some surplus, fine. You can utilize that surplus for capital projects, which you're always going to need, whether it's roads or bridges or college buildings or high school buildings or whatever the case may be, or for putting a pot together for incentives to create job opportunities for people, such as Big River Steel that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about there's a lot of money going in there, but my gosh, you look at the money that's going to come out of there.
Yeah,
the state.
we never did any of that stuff without a fiscal impact statement that showed we had a return on investment for the taxpayers. So that if you're going to spend $20 million
You better have some ROI on that.
on a project, then you figure how much, and you have not kickbacks, clawbacks, so that if the people don't do it, you get your money back or you get the property back. So you figure if you give them $20 million, then they've got to employ X number of people for X number of years at X wages to ensure that those salaries will generate state taxes that will repay that $20 million. But it won't just repay the $20 million. In the meantime, it's creating sales taxes, it's creating property taxes, and it's giving jobs to people who are going to be able to contribute to their families and their communities. So every one of them are. I used to laugh at because I'd get input on before I made a final decision on how much to do and whether or not to
You
even do
get
a
a
project.
lot of input.
But AEDC, Economic Development Agency, which one of my agencies, one of the governor's agencies, never saw a deal they thought shouldn't be done, and never saw an amount they thought was too much. And then on the other side of the coin, DF&A, Finance Administration, never saw a deal they should be done, and never thought you ought to pay a penny. And somewhere in between those extreme competing interests was usually
Where your talents lie, was bringing those people together.
Was a valid deal that made economic sense ultimately for the taxpayers.
And it's just, Arkansas has to do those things. I did, and we're familiar with. I saw where ASA is going to call for a special session for the.
And that's the deal we've been working on.
Yeah.
Obviously that didn't just happen in the last 3 months. And this, I'm glad he's doing what he's doing. He's doing exactly what I would have done if I'd still been there.
Okay.
It will be contingent because it may not go through, but you've got to have the authority from the legislature on an Amendment 82 project like this, just like we did Big River. You've got to have the legislative approval and authority and authorization so that if Lockheed Martin gets that contract for all the new Humvees. They don't call them Humvees, but that's the replacement for the Humvees. And if all of them are going to be built in Arkansas, down South Arkansas, where they need all the help they can get down in Camden, at the existing Lockheed Martin facility, then the state will be ready to go to do their part. And without that, it doesn't get done. Without that, it goes to South Carolina, or it goes to Wisconsin, or it goes to somewhere else. So if you want those jobs,
600 of them apparently,
and all the construction jobs in the short term.
Yeah.
Big River's only going to have 550 permanent employees, but it's got 2,000 construction workers for 3 years. So I mean, it's it's a big deal.
Want to come back and gonna wrap things up because you've been gracious with your time, and I appreciate that. But I want to talk about highs and lows, and tell us about your days and weeks now, three months or 4 or 5 months later after being out of the governor's office. We'll be right back with Governor Mike Beebe.
Jackson's Funeral Home and the Jackson family have been serving our friends and neighbors in Jackson County during some of the most difficult times of their lives for nearly 60 years. As the third generation of this family to own and operate Jackson's Funeral Homes, Jan, Rhett, and Jerry consider it the highest honor to be chosen to care for you and your family during times of need. We believe the highest standard of care is achieved when people are given the tools needed to make the most informed decision for the benefit of their family. For us, there's no greater honor than to care for our friends and our neighbors in their time of need. The Jackson's Funeral Homes, the 1900 block of Malcolm Avenue in Newport, phone number 870-523-5822.
Been a great visit as we get ready to wrap it up here with Governor Mike Beebe, who, in case you joined us late, in our programs available also on cable15tv.com, on our Facebook page and YouTube, and so some of the things you have said will probably be be seen in some places. You know, it just 8 years as governor, and it's hard to pick out a best moment or a best thing that's happened to you. It's hard to pick out the worst thing that you feel like happened or failed to happen, or failed to get done. But just off the top of your head, I mean,
the hardest part, the hardest thing I ever had to do as governor, by far, was make a phone call to a wife or a mother of one of our soldiers that was killed in Iraq or in Afghanistan. And I didn't even have to make the first call. The Department of Defense makes the first call, but I felt it was my duty to make that call, expressing the condolences of all of the people of Arkansas for the sacrifice. And in 07, 08, 09, we had a lot of that. It kind of slowed down after 2010 in terms of the number of soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen that we had lost. But whether they were National Guard folks that we had sent over there, or whether they were regular armed forces that were just from Arkansas, I tried to make that call. And there's not a lot you can say, and that's difficult. Another difficult thing, and I don't care how you feel about it, when you're the person that has to sign that death warrant on an execution, it'll draw you up, no matter how guilty. We never had an execution because the courts always stayed them, but I'd signed like 8 of them. In every case, I read the entire transcript to make sure that I didn't have any doubt about the guilt of the person sentenced to death. And I came away after reading the transcripts more convinced of their guilt than I was told even before reading them. And still, that's a very, very difficult thing to do when you're the person that's the last person to stand.
Yeah, there's no balance. It's you.
Yeah.
I mean, you are the final determinant, and that's just.
Now, it never happened because the court stayed it, but and it's part of your constitutional responsibility, but it's not easy. People think it's easy. It's not. Some of the best times.
Yeah.
Talking to kids.
Okay.
Kids that visited the Capitol, schools that I went to. I tell folks the hardest audience to address is junior high kids. You know, if you're talking to obviously adults are polite, or they expect you to be there, they want you there, or you wouldn't be there, or they at least put up with you. Elementary kids are fine because they don't have a clue who you are or what you're talking about, but it's new, and so and senior high kids are fine because they're bored, they really don't care, but they're mature enough to act like it or to at least be polite. Junior high kids don't care, and they don't care that you know that they don't care. So I learned a little trick, or stumbled on a little trick, just happenstance. I'd start with some rhetorical questions to get them involved, you know. How many of you like to go to McDonald's? How many of you like to go to the movies? How many of you, when you get old enough, want to have a nice car? How many? And you know, then you get all this, and then I say in the next blink of an eye, in the next snap of a finger, 28 babies are going to be born in the world. Another 28. One of them gets to be an American.
Yeah.
And more often than not, the majority of those 28 babies never go to a McDonald's, never go to a show, never have a chance to drive a car, can't walk down the street without the threat of being injured or killed in some fashion, don't have running water, don't have grocery stores, don't have educational opportunities, don't have a job. And then you can talk about what you want to talk about, because then for a second they're paying attention. That's fun.
Mm-hmm. You know, and they see television like we do too, and you know, with all the cable news programs and the plethora of that in the last, you know, couple of decades, it's all bad news.
Yeah.
Boy, it's just, you rarely hear, this is a great country. It's still a wonderful country. You know, it's the best country in the world. No, hands down. And sometimes we forget that because it's pounded into our brains and through our eyeballs, you know, in front of that tube. And I'm not bad on television. I make a living doing that. But
if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, and just, you know, and people are more interested in bad news, you know, and the cable companies are interested in bad news because sensationalism, it draws eyeballs, it draws viewers, and that is a shame.
Yeah.
It's just a cotton-picking shame because we don't extol the virtues of this country anymore. And I tell people, I said, you know, have you guys ever been to the Grand Canyon? No, we never had a chance to go. I said, have you ever been to Yellowstone National Park? No, bud, never had a chance to go out west. And I said, well, look, I've been lucky. Let me tell you about it. I said, you can take everybody that doesn't believe in this country or doesn't believe in God or whatever and stand them on the edge of the south rim of the Grand Canyon. And then tell me, you know, that it's not the greatest place in the world. And you've been able to travel around the world, you know. I was going to ask you, how did you enjoy Cuba?
Well, it was pretty neat. Yeah, and I was there when nobody could go.
Yeah,
just
now get to where we're going to get to go.
But they got to have the best fabricators and mechanics in the world to keep all those old 50s cars running. Yeah, because that's all they had.
You want a 55 Bel Air? You can.
I mean, they don't even make parts for those things anymore. And they still got them all running, so they're obviously pretty good fabricators themselves.
Ben's doing the filming today, and Ben also loves to work on cars, you know.
He ought to look at my garage and see my rocket ship.
Yeah. Oh, but anyway, that's a good move. I think President Obama made a real smart move.
Oh, yeah, I tried. Yeah, Arkansas is going to benefit from that because Arkansas rice and Arkansas poultry will be big beneficiaries of increased sales opportunities in Cuba.
Yeah, and it's you know, and what
if we're dealing with Iran and Russia and North Korea,
the world,
why wouldn't you deal with Cuba?
Go ahead, get on the soapbox again. I love it.
I'm through.
No, you're not. You know, you have a bright future, sir.
I think people reward you for telling the truth.
Yes, and you always have.
And I think they reward you for telling you what you think instead of pussyfooting around it, even if they don't agree with you sometimes.
I have seen you on AETN with Steve Barnes, and people call him all over the state with questions. I never saw you duck a question. Never saw you dodge one. I've seen you be a bit vociferous on a lot of them, you know, which is fine. That's who you are and who you always have been.
People have been awful good to me too.
Yeah,
as a result.
And I want you to speak to young people because a lot of them will watch this program knowing that the governor, you know, is on. And a lot of our high school kids throughout the area, northeast Arkansas. First off, all folks up northeast Arkansas, I want you to say hello to President Clinton for us this evening, and Miss Hillary, if she's going to be there, okay? And just talk about, you know, Abe Lincoln was a Republican. He had it pretty good. He grew up in a log cabin. Just But you're a Democrat who grew up and born in a tar paper shack and become a very successful lawyer, multi-decade senator in the state legislature, 2 terms as governor of the state of Arkansas, and somebody that I believe, now listen to me, that I believe has an opportunity, maybe things work out all right, to have a chance to become the next vice president of the United States.
Well,
That's anything is possible.
I'm living proof that anything's possible.
Right. So talk about that to kids and
yeah.
where you were and what you went through. You mentioned it.
Son of a single parent.
Anybody can make it with work.
That's the point.
And luck.
That's the point. This country affords you that chance. It's all about getting an education and then applying yourself, taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented, and working for whatever your dream is. I've always advised young people, and if any are listening, I'd advise you specifically, do what you like, not necessarily what makes you the most money. If you dread getting up in the morning and going to work, you're in the wrong job. An education gives you the opportunity to make those choices. If you don't have that education, sometimes you don't have a choice. You know, the only job you got is the job you dread getting up and going to. If you get an education, then you may have options. You have choices, this job or that job. Take the one that you like, the one that you enjoy, the one that you want to get up in the morning and go do, even if it's not near the salary of the other one, because being happy at your work is more important than the amount of money you make. Now, it's easy to say when you got a lot of bills, but in the long run, that'll create more happiness for you. But the key to all that's education. And if I can do it, you can do it.
I appreciate you taking the time, sir. I know you're busy, got a lot going on, and you know, if things don't work out, maybe you can go work for the FBI.
I couldn't pass a physical now.
Governor Mike Beebe joined us here on Remember When. Hope you enjoyed it. It'll air several times. Most of you know the schedule in the Newport area. It's on Sunday and Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, and then we'll probably run another time or two in through there. Have any questions for us? Y'all know where to find me in Newport, Arkansas. I'm Bud Black. Thanks to Ben for doing the production work, and thanks to the governor for taking time out. Beautiful home. Glad you're back home for the time being. You know,
Thanks, Bud.
At least temporarily. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? Governor Mike Beebe.